Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is an LA-based singer-songwriter who started in Manhattan. Also very heavily involved in the world of cinema, she's an artist in more ways than one. Welcome, Exxy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I always like to start with where your story with music kind of all started.
Yes, thank you. Started in kindergarten when I started taking piano lessons. My older sister was in piano, and I thought it was so cool, and I wanted to also start piano, but I was too young at the time. But then finally in kindergarten, the teacher and my parents felt like it was like I could, I was old enough to get started in it. So started with piano lessons, loved it, just kept up with it through my whole childhood. Eventually added in singing and choir in school, saxophone in the band, anything musical. I knew I loved music from playing piano, and so anything musical that musical opportunities at school, I would just jump right into it. So I was in band, choir. I started taking guitar lessons and saxophone lessons and drum set lessons, not all at the same time necessarily, but scattered throughout my childhood. I became obsessed with learning more instruments, and so I just kept adding more and more in, and I just knew from such an early age that I loved it. And I remember when I was, I think, a freshman in high school. I think I had a choir director tell me. She said, you could, this could be your job. You could do music as a career. And I remember that moment, that conversation, because that was the first time I really thought. I never even I never really thought about what happens after school was over. And so that was the first time I was really thinking about it. And it was like, wow, there's really nothing else I would want to do than to do the arts. And so that's how it all happened, how it all started.
So, from doing literally all of the music things, when did it kind of turn into writing your own songs and then really ultimately deciding to pursue it as like the real thing?
Yeah. It started, I wrote my first song when I was 10 years old, I remember. And I, leading up to that, I think I was 8 or 9, and I started rearranging songs on the piano. So I would take songs already written, and I had a lot of fun creating my own arrangement on the piano. And sometimes it was a piano vocal, sometimes it was just a piano solo, but I had so much fun reinventing these songs and putting my own twist on them. And that was the gateway into me starting to write. And when I was 10 years old, I started writing some songs, and they're very cute and kind of embarrassing, but more cute than anything. I mean, not too hard on my 10-year-old self, but I but yeah, that's how it started. And it was just a very natural progression, and I realized I loved rearranging on the piano, and then I realized I loved creating my own stuff on the piano, and then I loved like adding lyrics, and I loved that, and I just wanted to keep doing more and more of it.
Um, was the first song you wrote at 10 just piano, or was there lyrics involved in that as well?
There were lyrics involved as well. I actually remember some of them. It was called Someday, and it was someday I'm going to live my dreams. Someday I'm going to learn to fly like a bird in the sky. Someday. So that was my first song ever. That so, and I hope I'm making her proud today.
Will that ever be reinvented and be out? and to the world?
Oh my goodness. I've never thought about that. That's a great question. That would be really cool to take a piece of that, maybe even the melody or something, the melody or a little line from it. That would be special. Like no one would really know, but I would know, just a way of kind of incorporating that. That would be special to me. So yeah, that's a little light bulb moment. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll sneak it in and you'll hear it and you'll be like, "Oh, I know. I know."
I'll be like, you're welcome.
Yes, yeah. Co-writer, 5%.
um when as you started writing, like going beyond just the rearranging and turning it into like writing original stuff, how did that kind of become, because like when you think music for a career, even if you're like that can take a lot of different scopes of things. Like that could be in just a very, I just like sing covers kind of thing, or I, like
Yeah,
whatever the case may be. What
yeah.
about like where with the writing and everything, where did that kind of turn into, okay, I'm writing stuff. I want to like record this stuff. I want this stuff to be out into the world. How did those kind of decisions transpire?
Yes, that was a really hard decision for me. Because you're right, I loved so many different things, and I grew up learning the piano on like learning classical music. I was studying classical music on piano, classical music in my voice lessons, opera, and for a long time I thought I was going to go into music composition and eventually film scoring. Um, and I was on that track where I was going to summer programs. So there's this music boarding school in Michigan called Interlochen, and I was going there in the summer and studying music composition. I had a private music composition instructor at ASU, where I was living in Phoenix, and he was helping me prep, like just kind of work on my pieces to essentially get them ready to submit to colleges eventually. Um, but I remember, so a lot of colleges only offer music composition as an undergrad degree, not film scoring. Most colleges don't offer film scoring as an undergrad degree. That's something you go back for your master's. And so I remember I was going to be going strictly into music composition, most likely, and so I was, in my studies, I was studying a lot of modern classical music, and a lot of modern, more contemporary classical music is very avant-garde and very experimental, and I respect it very much. But I know I was having a lot of trouble connecting to it, where to the point of like, I want to be making this music and I want to be surrounded by this style and engulfed in it. And I remember struggling with the connection to the more modern contemporary classical music. And I remember one of my instructors said to me, I expressed this to him. This was at Interlochen, and he said, some music is, meant to stimulate your mind over your heart. And that was a moment for me where I was like, I want my heart stimulated. I don't want, like, I'm not, I don't know. I'm in it, like, I want my heart to be in this. And I don't know, I want to make music that really like fills people's hearts and pulls at their heartstrings, and there's an emotional response. I want to make music that makes me emotional, and for some people, modern classical music does do that for them. Like that's amazing. But for me, I just was having a lot of trouble because I was writing songs. I was writing more popular songs during this time, and I was feeling far more passionate about what I was doing there. And so I was kind of being, I felt like I was being pulled in two directions where, especially when you're a kid, you kind of, I don't think you realize how many options are out there for you. And I think at the time I just thought, oh well, I've been studying with these mentors and teachers and going to these programs, and like the ship has already sailed. Like I'm here on this track, and like this is what I'm doing, like this, and I thankfully I had like some mentors and family around me that is like, no, you can really do whatever excites you the most and whatever fills your heart the most. And it was a big like pivot and turning point for me, where like even up until senior year of high school, I was having a bit of like a musical identity crisis in a way, where I was like, I don't like, what do I want to do? And I think I knew I wanted to write pop songs this whole time, but I think I was in this other world, and I almost felt like I was going to be letting people down if I didn't go in that direction, because I had so many people validate me in that direction of, there aren't a lot of women in like the film scoring and music composition world. And so people were really excited for me and really cheering me on and encouraging me in that direction. And so I I don't know, I just didn't want to let anybody down. I didn't want to make a mistake, but at the end of the day, I listened to what my heart wanted to do the most and what was most passionate for. And it was writing popular songs. And so I pivoted right in time, I think. I mean, obviously you can pivot at any time, but I pivoted, and I went fully into studying songwriting and popular music, and writing pop songs and recording, and there was no looking back, and I'm so glad I did. And everybody, I didn't disappoint anyone. Everyone was very happy for me. I mean, at the end of the day, the people that love you just want you to be happy and doing what you love. So it was a great learning moment for me.
Um, is that sort of the way that you still have your hand in the cinema space, or like what has that, why that, like, is because of that sort of origin, if you will, is that where that has kind of taken form? What has that kind of duality been like?
Yes. Well, and yeah, that's definitely connected. And I think so. Something I haven't brought up yet is I've been focusing on the music, but something that was an equal passion that was forming alongside the music was acting. I loved movies, and that was a part of why I wanted to go into music composition. Was I want to make music for movies. I want to act in movies. Like I love movies. I was very passionate, and I remember the first musical I did. I did, like when I was 14, I did my first musical, and I did it more on the music side because I loved music. And that was my first exposure to acting. And I realized how much I loved playing a character. It was so much fun. And I just loved transforming and and being a part of a different world and story. It was so thrilling and exciting. And so I became very obsessed with musical theater and started doing a lot of, there was a couple year period where I really thought I wanted to focus on musical theater and go on down that trajectory. And then it was interesting. I actually came to like almost like the music and acting was on the same road with musical theater, and then they verged off and they were on two separate roads, but still both two roads that like I was heading down. But I realized how much I love acting, like even without music. I just love straight acting, and I started doing plays and started doing short on camera project, like short film projects in Phoenix. There's not a lot of there's not a large film community in Phoenix. There definitely is one, but definitely not like LA where I am now. But definitely did some short film projects, and just started acting in anything I could get involved in. And I knew I wanted to pursue act, like when people kind of during that time I was having that like crisis in a way of like, what do I focus on? And I had a lot of people who love me kind of come to me and say, really just whatever's in your heart, whatever's number one for you. And honestly, at this time, acting and music were both number one for me, both tied, acting and songwriting specifically being in popular music. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for both. And that's what I did. I ended up, I went to school in New York City for a year, and then I transferred to USC in LA, and I've been in LA since. And I studied at USC. I studied both acting and songwriting in the popular music program. And it was really, USC was my dream school for that reason, was because I really wanted to study both acting and songwriting. And USC allowed me, like USC had those programs present where I could do both. And so I was able to study both of my passions. And what happened was, in my acting classes, getting back to cinematography, the acting students were required to take some filmmaking classes. We took all sorts of different production classes to, they want the actor to be well-rounded and to have an understanding of what the other crew members and other people involved, like what their job is like and what they're doing. So we were doing all sorts of stuff: set design, lighting, sound, and some film production classes. And I remember loving the cinematography classes. I found them so interesting. And it honestly made me watch films differently in a good way. Like I watch films now, still enjoying them, but I'm also watching how they execute a certain scene. And I find it so interesting. And it's almost like it opens this box, and the moment, like like it just changes how you watch anything, and in a good way. It makes it even more enjoyable, in my opinion. And I found it so interesting, but I never thought I'd be using those filmmaking, like film production skills. I didn't think I would be doing that. I just thought, I just found it interesting, and it was a requirement in my acting degree. But then when I graduated from USC and it was time to start making content and making music videos specifically, I realized how expensive it is to hire a whole team of people, a director of photography, a gaffer, an editor, rent the location. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I was so overwhelmed, and I almost felt kind of buried under that pressure of how am I going to afford all this? And then I thought, I thought, oh, could I do any of this to help cut some of the cost? And so at first it was just directing. I was directing my own music videos, but I was still hiring a DP and an editor. But I was studying from the editor, and I was studying and practicing myself. And then a few years later, I started editing myself. And so I was directing and editing my own videos, but it was still just me. But then I had some friends come to me and they say, I love your music videos. Could you make mine? And I had such imposter syndrome. I was like, oh no, I don't actually make music videos. I just make my own. Like, but they had more faith in me than I did at that time. And I very hesitantly was like, okay, like, my first friend that wanted to hire me, I was like, don't pay me anything. And they're like, we're going to pay you. And I'm like, we had to like fight about it, but they paid me. And it was so much fun. I think it's even more fun doing other people's music videos than my own, because there's just not that stress there of like, it's so much more stressful when you're doing your own, but when you're doing other people's, you just get to have fun and be a passenger in their car and support them and bring their vision to life and see them excited. And it's just so fun and rewarding. And so that's how it really all started at first, doing music videos for people. It became a side hustle where I was just making a little extra money here and there, doing a little thing here and there. But I started to get more and more work, and it now is essentially my main source of income, and it's my day job that I can do to pay my bills and stay here in Los Angeles while I'm pursuing acting, while I'm pursuing my pop music and being an artist and a songwriter. And so I'm very thankful. I can't complain.
Always nice when a side hustle just kind of manifests itself naturally, isn't it?
Yes. It really crept up on me. If you told me a couple years ago that I'd be doing like it, yeah, it was, I'm very thankful.
um no, that's really interesting. And I think it's interesting that you think it's like it's more stressful doing your own than the other way around, because I feel like for me it'd be like, oh, like, I'm doing my own stuff. Like if I screw it up, I screw it up for myself. But if I do it and I screw it up for somebody else, I'm like, that's a little bit more on the line.
That's true. That's true. Is definitely, you're so right. There is there's definitely more pressure of not letting them down. Definitely that is more present with clients than it is with my own. I think with my own, the stress comes in of what do I want to do, and what is this vision, and is it gonna like is this, and your own money's on the line too, of like, even though I direct and edit my own music videos, I still have to hire a DP. I still have to pay for a location. There's still a lot of cost in doing a music video, and it's a lot of pressure when your own money's on the line. It's like, whew, like this better work out, and at least I know with my clients, if I dropped the ball in some way, thankfully that hasn't, the only time that happened was it wasn't my mistake necessarily, but it was the director of photography we had for a shoot for a client. He had a new special, like he had a new SD card that he was using, and it had like some different features, and he accidentally wiped out all the footage. And he called me and he was horrified. He's such a professional, and this was just so, like, this was a pure accident. Thankfully it wasn't a full music video. It was just like a short kind of little, like some green screen stuff we did for a few hours for a client. And so of course we like he re-rented the location, so they didn't have to pay for anything, and we all went back and redid everything at no cost for them. Like we like that's one thing I know is, like, if I mess up for myself, I'm eating that cost. But if I mess up and it's someone, like if I mess up with a client, I'm going to make sure to fix it. And they won't have to have any cost there.
That's a good way to do business. That's where how you keep clients, for sure.
Yes.
Um moving back to the music a little bit, what do you find most often inspires your songwriting?
Oh man, that is a great question. I've been thinking a lot about that recently, about having a musical voice, because I think all of us songwriters are inspired by different things. And I notice a lot of my friends sing about other topics that I don't focus on as much, or vice versa. And it's so interesting to see what inspires us. And for me, I've been noticing I've been singing a lot about mental health lately. Mental health, also about I reference the city a lot in my music. I talk a lot about Los Angeles. I'm so, like, thankful. I grew up in central Phoenix. Phoenix is definitely not as large as Los Angeles, but it's still a pretty big size city. And I grew up, like in central Phoenix, and then I moved to New York City. I studied abroad in London, and now I'm living here in Los Angeles. And I feel so blessed that I've got to live in some really cool cities. And cities inspire me so much. And so I talk a lot about cities and just kind of that fast life, and just, I'm so, like, interested in that and fascinated, and mental health a lot. I've been writing about that a lot lately. And just trying to be as honest and vulnerable as I can, and really just share, like, talk about things that, like, I love when I hear a song where someone's talking about something that maybe I felt nervous to share about. And it's like, oh, I like, when I hear it, it's like, I think the same thing, or I feel the same way when this happens. It's so, like, oh, the connection is so therapeutic and so amazing. And so I just try to talk about my insecurities and my struggles. I try to be very honest about that in my music. And it was very scary at first, but it's been so rewarding now, having people come up to me and say, I feel it. I felt like you wrote this for me. And it's like, oh, like, and not only am I happy that I encouraged them and they felt a connection, but I feel so encouraged of, like, oh, they feel the same way as I do. Like I'm not alone. Like I'm normal. I'm a human being. Like I'm not crazy. Like I don't know. It's just it's been so rewarding. So I've been singing a lot about that kind of thing lately.
Um, it's always interesting to get the answers to that because it's oftentimes it's a lot of just my life, which, you know, in a way is always true because
Yes.
you only can write really what you know, and what do you know better than your own lived experience. Um,
Right.
do you have you found that by writing about like the city life just in general, like do you think it's taken different forms given well, I mean, you referenced LA specifically. If you've written about other cities, this kind of falls as a valid point. But do you think that like you've like it would be? I guess what I'm trying to get to is like if you were to look back at it at the songs, would you know kind of what was about different places or what was from different points in time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. I can always look back and say, oh, like that was definitely, and I've definitely written about my time living in New York City and my time living in London, and um, those those years living there were some of the best years. And I know when I was in high school, I wanted to be in LA. Like I wanted to move straight from Phoenix to LA. Like I was like very honed in on LA. And that didn't happen right away. I the first time I applied to USC, I wasn't accepted, and I got into another program in New York, and I went there, and I was devastated when I first didn't when I wasn't accepted at USC as a senior in high school. I was devastated, and I thought, oh, my dream of living in LA is over. Actually, completely, like, I didn't know that it actually was a dream come true, because I didn't know that I'd get to, like, I didn't know I'd, yes, you're still going to go to LA, but you get to live in New York City. You get to live in London. Like you get to have these experiences before settling down in Los Angeles. And I didn't even know at the time, like, just the wonderful adventure that was ahead. And those cities have inspired me. And although I only lived in New York City for a year, it was my first year away from home. I was a teenager still. And it was one of the most informative years of my life, where all like that, like New York has contributed to the person I am today so massively, because it was my first home away from home, and I really found myself in so many ways there. And so I'm still writing about New York. This year I'm working on a song called Lower East Side. Like that's where I lived. One of the neighborhoods I lived in New York. But like, yeah, cities fascinate me, and I'm just so inspired by them, and definitely I can definitely, each city has different facets of them that inspire my writing. So it's in a unique way to each place. So I yeah, it's been fun writing about that.
It's definitely gives a cool perspective. I feel like going anywhere else can always give you a new perspective. And then being that they've all been city environments, it's even that much more like you can connect them, but you can also like compare and contrast.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. They're all so different. They're all so different. And I just feel like we all have these like little toolboxes, and each place we go kind of gives you different tools or different inspirations, or and I don't know, it just I'm just so thankful for each place I've got to spend time in, and they've given me things, like you said, like each place has their own pieces that are unique to them, and I'm just so thankful that I got to experience those unique things in each place.
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would you call it?
Oh, oh man, that's a good question. Um, mm, the first thing that comes to mind is something, the artists I've been inspired by lately. And it's something that I am trying to incorporate into my own music, is like the juxtaposition of like the soft, delicate sonic elements, and then like really like kind of aggressive, hard hitting, like in your face sonic elements as well. And I love like the marrying of them and juxtaposition of them in a song where it's just like boom, 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 like just like up and down, like very dynamic. I love that. And so I would maybe call it like soft sharp music or something, like a hyphen, like soft hyphen sharp. um where I released an EP this year called Soft, and I don't know if I'm going to, but I thought of like, I love the idea of releasing like an EP following titled Sharp. And I don't know if I will, but it's definitely in my bank here, in my mental bank. But I love I love the juxtaposition of like the delicate piano, or like the delicate, like just some strings, or like just some, beautiful synths. And then it suddenly cuts into this like crazy, like distorted guitar or something out of nowhere. And it's just very dynamic. And the artists that I've been obsessed with lately do it so well. And I've just been really inspired in doing that. So I definitely want to incorporate that more into my music. And I already have been this year. I love the drama.
The drama. That's a great way to put it. No, that is always cool because it keeps things new and different and exciting, and it keeps you away from just kind of falling into one level or one speed, or one sort of stagnant path. Plus, like, I usually get like something pop, like people still want to hold on to that thing, but just soft sharp in itself is just I like that. That's cool. Hold on to that one. Hold on. You'll have to, I mean, if you hold on to it, you'll have to do the other EP, but
I know. Yep. And you'll see it. You'll be like, I know what's going on.
I'm getting all the predictors here.
Yes. We're manifesting it.
It has to happen. You said it on a podcast. Now it has to happen. That's the rule.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the rule.
This is accountability right here, everybody.
No, yeah, I think that yeah, because it also could play into, you could translate that into like in a lyrical sense, as well as like go back from like delicate moments to like just kind of very on the nose, like blunt in your face, like tell it like it is. Like, let's casually paint the picture, but then let's like slam it down as well.
Damn. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Is there a song that you think best embodies who you are as an artist in terms of your ultimate sample of like, if you like this, the rest of the catalog is probably also for you?
Ooh, that is such a good question. And to be honest, okay, I have two answers. The first answer is I truly don't know. And that's something that I've been like, I know that this has been a source of frustration for me in the past. I think that I've had a lot of conversations recently that I don't necessarily feel frustrated by it anymore. Like, I think it's something that I could own, kind of that soft, sharp, like that contrasting juxtaposition. I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that when you listen through my catalog, it's very eclectic. I love so many kinds of, I love music so much. And I love different sounds, and I love so many different artists and different genres. And I'm listening to something where I'm like a very colloquial, like vulnerable folk song, and I'm like, I want to do something like that. And then I'm listening like to Julia Michaels, I'm like, I love her. And then it's like, oh, I'm listening to Billie Eilish, and I'm like, oh, like I want to do something really like edgy and crazy. And then like I love so many artists, and they inspire me. And then it's just like my music, I think, is very eclectic, where you're listening through it, and there are some songs that are very more center pop. Like my song Cry If I Want To is very center pop. And then Cabin in the Woods is a more like folk pop type of vibe. And then Afternoon Depression is more of like a trappy pop. Why Do I Do This to Myself and Eggshells are a little edgier and dark. And so I feel like it's almost like a play where it's like all these characters excite me, and it's like I just want to try them all on like an actor. But with all that said, so like the first answer is I don't know if but my next answer is I think my latest release, which is a song called Joyride. I think honestly it has a lot of elements that a lot of the songs do. Like, I think if you are more of like an indie kind of organic instrument girly, it has that bass, like that main bass cadence that goes through the entire song. And it has like a live drum set. It has those organic elements. But then if you're like a whimsical girly, like more ethereal and synths, like it has the heavy reverb. It has like those whimsical moments that like the whimsical, like I think Joyride probably does, like, you could probably listen to Joyride and then any of my other songs and it would feel like, oh yeah, this makes sense, like that, this artist would do that. So I think if I had to give an answer, it would definitely, I think my latest release Joyride would be probably the most kind of cohesive across all the songs.
Putting them next to each other, like how you said, like you could put that one next to any of the other ones, it would make sense. Yeah. That is the best way to think about this question, because it's like, it's like, because it ultimately is like, how do you kind of transition from that? Like, you're not going to pick something that's like out of left field if like all of your stuff is like over here. But if you can kind of look at it in the way of like, oh, this makes sense neighboring this other thing, like that's the way that people need to start thinking about it, because people are like, well, it depends on what you like. But it's also like, which one is your most versatile? Which one has kind of all of the different elements packaged into one? I like that. I'm going to have to hold on to that, because if anybody's struggling with an answer, I'm going to be like, here's your hint. Think about it this way. I mean, it's kind of there's always one that just kind of has a little piece of everything else. And it's sometimes hard to define because like, as things evolve, like obviously you're going to be coming out with new stuff. Does that one that revolves around everything else still revolve around everything, or is it shifted? But it's kind of like the, it's the one connecting dot that just kind of branches off into everything else. They might connect some other places, but it's the one that like connects to everything, So.
Absolutely.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Okay, I will base this off of, I think, 2 things. One is like my biggest influences, and my favorite artist right now, but also I'll base it off of, I think, some feedback I've gotten as well from some people like, oh, this reminds me of so and so or something. I feel like a mutt when it comes to music, because I love so many artists. Like I'm like ravenous on Spotify. Like I'm just like going through all these playlists looking for new music. I love it. And so there's so many artists I love. And I feel like, that question of like, who's your favorite artist? It's like, that's a really hard question for me to answer, because I think I go through phases of being really obsessed with certain artists. And then like, but the phases are just always going. And so I'll tell you right now, oh my goodness. Okay. I will definitely, I mentioned Billie earlier. Billie Eilish and Phineas are such huge inspirations to me, and they have really lifted the ceiling for me of my understanding of and my like the possibilities that can that are there in popular music and just music in general. I admire what they do so much, and they inspire me so much. And I think Billie really, her music really captures that soft and sharp aspect that I love so much and want to incorporate into my own music of having those delicate, like when the party's over and then bury a friend. It's like, whoa, and but they both are so her. It's just amazing. So definitely Billie would be one of them. Another artist that is inspiring me like through the roof lately, I've been obsessed with her, is Amelia Moore. She is incredible. And I would say, I think that her inspiration can definitely be seen in my music now, but definitely the music that you're going to be hearing the next year, you'll definitely be like I've been so inspired by her lately, and I've been learning so much from her. Like I learned so much from the artists I listen to and love. Like they teach me about music and about songwriting and the possibilities. And so probably Billie Eilish and Amelia Moore. Another artist I've been obsessed with lately that I would also say kind of in that same space as Amelia Moore, of like, you could hear him now in my music, but you'll hear him even more in like the music I'm working on now that will come out next year in 2024 is very inspired by Grant Kanoki. He is an artist. My friend Anthony actually got me, a friend of show, Anthony Quaid, who was a podcast guest a month ago or so. He he introduced me to Grant Kanoki, and Grant Kanoki is a local up and coming artist, so underrated. He definitely has a lot of buzz right now, but just wait, I'm calling it. Grant Kanoki and Amelia Moore, both of them are going to be absolutely massive. They're definitely sizzling right now, but they're going to be even like they're going to blow up. They are amazing, and Grant, I'm obsessed with his music. So heartfelt and like kind of that soft sharp thing again of like the delicate, like some moments are so delicate and so raw and honest, and then other moments are so hard hitting, in your face, like electric. And so I would say that's like my dream cauldron right there, is Billie Eilish, Amelia Moore, and Grant Kanoki. If we could just throw them all in a cauldron and like mix it up, and like if I could just drink it and just digest all of that, that would be amazing.
Well, that's definitely the most interesting end to that answer of that question that we've had before. And
creepy. Yeah, it's giving creep. That's
it's giving Halloween, which might have been a couple months ago.
Spooky, like too spooky.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, that I'm not familiar with the other two, but I will say Billie Eilish is soft and sharp, if that's what we're calling it.
Yes.
It's that back and forth of let's keep it light to like let's put it in your face.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I feel like typically people give answers where it's like, this is from like this element, and this is for this element, and this is for this element. But it's like, you kind of looked at it in a way of they all kind of have that, as we're coining it today, soft and sharp. Like they other gets
That's
all
it.
in that like same line. And so it's less of like, this is like my like voice, it sounds like this, or like my like writing is a lot like this. It's like, this is the vibe and the like element that I'm going for and the energy that I want. these are just different iterations of it that I currently really enjoy.
Yes.
So I always, I like when there's like a different mindset around the sorts of answers. And it also kind of gives a testament to the fact that you know, soft and sharp is the lane that we found, and that's the lane that we're sticking with,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, let's make it a genre. Let's do it.
Spotify's new like playlist is called like soft and sharp.
Yes.
Let's not
Come on, Spotify.
let's not let them have it though. Let's start it somewhere else first. Not let's
It's
let's
ours.
keep it before
Yep.
before they get to it.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I know where this is gonna go, but we'll see where it goes. What is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think you are predicting correctly. Definitely my love for acting and just the visual, like I don't know, acting and movies and TV and music videos and just storytelling in that space, plays. Like I I love it. It's funny, it doesn't it I know acting and being a songwriter are two separate crafts, in the art, in under the arts, right? But to me, they feel the same to me. Like it doesn't like, since I do both, it just doesn't, like when I wake up and do one of them, it I don't know, it like, and they inform each other. Like I do think that my life in music benefits me as an actor. It's helped me as an actor, and I think me being an actor helps me as a songwriter. I really believe that. And um I just love, I love acting, and I it has been such an unexpected joy of making music videos the past few years. Like, it has been, I never thought I would be doing this, and I absolutely love creating a visual story, and it's just been such a pleasure. And and it's also, not that I'm like anyone like to be, I'm not like giving out advice necessarily, but if anyone's listening, and like, I really think it's so beneficial as an artist to have another artistic passion to go to when you just need to mix things up. Like, I know that sometimes, being pursuing a career as a musical artist is so difficult, and there are bad days and bad moments and bad experiences sometimes. That's inevitable, right? And it's just so refreshing to just take a step back and focus on this acting project I did with friends, or focus on this audition I have in 2 days, or or like edit this music video for a client. And it just feels like it like fills my cup again. And or vice versa, if I'm, maybe I just finished a short film or something, and I'm feeling kind of drained, and it's like there's just nothing better than to pivot and work on some songwriting material at that point. It's just really refreshing. It's nice to have that other medium to like turn to and just keep things fresh.
Like earlier, I'm going to turn it on its head and say that I would have guessed the opposite, because I would think of it as like you would just get creatively like burnt out, like more than anything. It's like I only have so much energy to put into like this one thing, but it's like then it's like, wait, you're asking me to like have another chunk of creative energy to put into like something completely different. So I mean,
That's a good point.
that's a good spin on it for sure. Like that's the right way to look at it. But
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Like, I think of it as almost like, imagine if you're like sitting and you're like lifting weights with your arms, and like your arms feel like they're going to break off, and you're like, I cannot lift any more weights. But then imagine, like, okay, you rest your arms, and it's like, okay, well, now you need to go for a run or a walk. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like, my leg, like, I've been sitting all this whole time. Like, I can go move my legs. And like, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's a different like muscle, even though like I know I said it feels the same, and it really does in so many ways, but it's still a different muscle, creative muscle, where it's like other, like creative juice, where it's like, oh, I have this other juice here, like this bottle's empty, but I'll drink this juice, you know.
That makes sense. You put it that way, it makes all the more sense for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah, do you so in I think it kind of depends on what your like music writing process looks like, but do you ever, when you're approaching like taking a song from like point A to, I guess, point Z, um, in that process, do you ever look at it and be like, oh, this is kind of the vision I have the visual for, and then that kind of shapes the way the music takes its form? Or is it always like we put that sort of secondary element off until the primary thing is complete?
That, okay, yes, absolutely. I can't help but like, I am such a I have a very vivid imagination, for better or for worse. Sometimes it, like, I know that sounds like a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. I mean, depending on, I mean, I think people with very vivid imaginations are probably also prone to anxiety, and like because you can imagine anything, and like good scenarios and bad. And so, but I, for better or for worse, I have a very vivid imagination, and I'm always daydreaming and always visualizing. And so there's no way I cannot write a song without imagining all these colors and stories and little movies in my head. I'm always, the music video is always right there. Even if the song doesn't have a music video, because I try to spread out my budget, where like some songs do, some songs don't, but it's like, even if I don't have it for that, I still know exactly what I would do for the visual if I did it. Like it just is, it's right there. And so definitely the visual is there. And answering your question of does it ever inform the music, it actually has. There's a music video I did called Horror Film, and the song's called Horror Film, and then I did a music video for it. And to be completely honest with you, I released it a few years ago in October, like in like Halloween season. And I ought to be completely honest with you, I really just wanted to make like my favorite filmmaker is Quentin Tarantino, and I really wanted to make kind of a, even though like not like, I mean, some of it's very Quentin, but not all of it. But I almost like my love for Quentin, my love for like dark kind of, you know, ominous films. Like I wanted to make a horror film-esque music video. And so I was like, well, I need a song for it. And so I almost commissioned myself in a way to like, I'm like, well, I need to write a song that I could do this with. And so in a way, Horror Film was written so I could do this music video. And I often say that, where I feel like my music videos are almost my self-indulgent, like my place to like make these like film ideas that I've always wanted to do. Like it's my place to kind of do that. But it's like I can still say it's productive because I'm because I'm putting it to a song that I'm going to be marketing and pushing out there. And so, but there's definitely some self-indulgent dreaming going on as well. So yeah, sometimes, especially in that case of Horror Film, I definitely wrote the song so I could make the music video.
That's, I mean, if you have the vision for it, at least you made it happen. And being able to do those two different worlds definitely enables that sort of thing. And you ultimately kind of gave yourself the excuse to do it, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it takes to get the project done, that's all that
Yes.
matters.
Yes.
So, um, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
Well, the hair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm half kidding. I definitely yeah, the hair is definitely I get a lot of comments on the hair. I guess physically the hair. But more than that, more than just the physical aspect. Um I think, there's a few things. I think I know that a lot of times, you know, artists are discouraged, or maybe they're discouraged by other people, or maybe even themselves, like they don't want to make music, like they don't want to think too much about like what is like what are the waves in music right now, what is doing well in music right now, like how, like what can you make that is going to monetize well or be received like it received well in the current landscape of what's going on in music. Like a lot of times we don't want to think about that stuff, and I think the reason is like we don't want to make something that's artificial in any way, or you know that's not genuine. But I think you can, like for someone like me that's really like I'm really trying to make a living as a musical artist, and so I think it's important for me, like I think of a Venn diagram, I think it's important for me to be aware of what's working in music right now, and to let that influence me and inspire me, but also make something that is so genuine and authentic to me. And I think that like a Venn diagram, finding that spot in the middle where it is totally me and totally authentic, but also it's something that is working like that it's going to work well in you know like work like has the potential to do well in this environment. And so I am constantly thinking about like what are some things about me that are genuine, like this hair, like I dyed my hair crazy colors, you know, like yes, I was aware of having like a very distinct visual branding and like visual like being visually like having like it, this helps me stay like people like are it's like people have told me it's easy to remember me because I come in with such like a memorable hairstyle. Like I know that like from a marketing business standpoint that does help, but it's also what I love. Like I love being colorful, I love color, and so it's not something that's just like that's something I'm doing just for that purpose. It's something that serves both. And so I think I try to think of like how can I differentiate myself in a way that's genuine. And so definitely my use of color in my branding is something that I do a lot. Like my social media, like my Instagram is color coded, where it's an ombre of like as you're scrolling it goes through the rainbow. And then my hair, my outfits, my music videos, it's all very like color curated. So like the visual, like there's a visual story there that helps my music that I think is unique. I think another thing visually that helps that is maybe a little unique to me is definitely my music video style. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I definitely kind of use my music videos as an excuse to like make kind of a cinematic like little thing that I've been dreaming of making. And I think my music videos do have that cinematic element. I know I've been told that, and I think that's something that is also kind of, you know, not that no other artists do that, but I think that it's something that, you know, the cinematic quality of you know of the visuals I think is something that also is kind of different. I think musically, I really just try to be so honest and so vulnerable, um and I really try to I really try to share my heart with people and to just be really honest and vulnerable and talk about things that not all artists want to like, or not all people like want to admit. And I there have even been moments I've admitted things in my music that I'm even scared to admit, but I've learned that it's so worth it because you're not alone and there's so many people that feel how you feel. So I think that's hopefully I hope that my vulnerability and my vulnerability and maybe my softness as a artist, I hope is something that's unique to me.
I definitely agree with the lack of desire to filter things through the commercial lens, because you know,
Yes.
if it doesn't necessarily agree with maybe where things are at currently, you just kind of want to ignore the fact, because it's like I'm just going to do it because I want to.
Yes.
So taking that into consideration with the things that you're doing and everything, have you ever come across it where it's like, this is very much not what the industry would necessarily want or necessarily needs at this moment, but I feel really strongly about it, I want to do it anyway?
Ooh, yes. A few times. Um, I'm thinking of things like there's been a few instances, like I know on my first EP Ugly Lovely, I wrote one of the songs on the EP was a poem. It was spoken word over an instrumental that my friend and I made, and And it definitely wasn't, I knew that song, like, it's not like I wasn't making it like thinking, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be like hot on TikTok. Like, it was very artsy, and it was just something that I was very passionate about, and I wanted to make it just because it was like heavy on my heart and I wanted to do something like that. Or there was, for horror film, again, I did like a at least a minute long introduction before the song started. And some people enjoy that, but some people, they're like, I want to get to the song, like I'm trying to listen to the song. And long cinematic intros is not like, it's not necessarily, especially in this age of short attention spans and like trying to like market, like run ads and market yourself, like a minute long intro, is probably not not the best idea. But it's like, I wanted to do that because like I was dreaming of doing something like this. And so definitely there have been those moments here and there where it's like, I'm going to be a little like, I'm going to be a little self-indulgent here. I'm going to do like what I've been dreaming of doing because I've had this on my mind forever. And I have to do this. I love this. But most of the time, and I love how like kind of that commercial lens you were talking about of like, I could be wrong, but I believe that every single person has something that like they have like, there's something that they love making that can be that also can serve a commercial purpose, and it's like, I really try to find that with myself of like, what are the things I love making that also serve that commercial purpose. And so most of the time that is at the forefront of my like serving both purposes, since I'm hoping to like make a living doing this. But I also still have my moments, so that where I'm like, screw it, I'm doing it, I'm doing what I want, and I don't care if it has 2 views on it or 2 streams. Like, I am going to do what I love here, because it will bring me joy.
And I mean, I think that you have to have that, because if you just filter everything through that commercial lens, then it loses, at some point it'll lose that sense of true like authenticity. Like, you can put that sort of spin on it, and like, I don't think if the way to do things now was to post the TikToks and do all that stuff, like if that wasn't like essentially the marketing lifeline of independent artists because it's free, like if that wasn't the thing, I don't think half of the artists that are doing it would be. It's like one of those kinds of things where it's like, we just have to bite the bullet sometimes. We just have to kind of create to satisfy whatever that sort of standard or expectation is. And like, now we're in the world of Spotify's algorithms are like, oh, post like a new song every like 4 to 6 weeks or whatever. And so like trying to hack that system, but also then like trying to maintain that sense of authenticity and inner creativity and create art that ultimately aligns with what you're all about can be a challenge, but it's also a business. So you kind of sometimes need to just give up the little sacrifices and do the business thing, which is do the thing that's going to put you in a better commercial position.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I think you're so right of having a balance of like keeping that in mind as you're creating. But then also, yeah, also having those moments without that pressure. And like, I'm just doing this for me, and this will fill my cup creatively and keep me going through the other, like it'll help me get through the other stuff that are necessary evils. And I've noticed that with a lot of artists I love is like, a lot of artists, I could go through and give different case studies that I've kind of watched. And I'm like, I've noticed a lot of artists I love get more experimental after they've like kind of really hit it off, where they have the kind of the freedom and the resources to do that now. And that pressure of like, oh, I need to make money. Like I need to pay my bills doing music. It's like, at that point, after they've gotten their foot in the door, like the money, they've made the money doing the music. And now like maybe that financial need is not quite as pressing on them, or the other pressures of like, I need to get my foot in the door and prove myself. It's like they've made it, whatever that means. And they can now kind of just do what makes them happy. And I've seen a lot of artists go off and kind of go into a very experimental area, and some fans are not happy with that. But I see that and I'm like, I'm so happy for them. I'm like, they are probably doing things that they've been holding in their heart for years. And like now they finally have like the resources and ability to be able to do that without having to like worry about all those pressures. And so absolutely, I it's important to have that.
Yeah, that's why I think it's more about striving to get to the point with whatever else like you have going on, just in general, life wise, project wise, to get to the point with the music where it's like, okay, like I'm at the point with this in itself that it's enough like to satisfy that financial need. It's not, oh,
Yes.
like I'm just doing like I'm only like it's because then it doesn't become as much work as it does like I'm continuing to be able to do what I enjoy, and it's filling that other void of things instead of like just trying to shift it into that gear before it's ready to be shifted in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What impact do you ultimately want to have with your music and with your artistry?
There's a few things. I think if I could, like I said earlier, there's just no like there's no better feeling than you're going through a certain struggle and you hear a song and it's as if they're writing your bio out, or they're writing your specific situation. Like you're like, when you read that thing or you hear that thing and you're like, how are they doing this? That's 100% me. Like that's what I'm going through. Like I love, like it's so, that connection is so great. And I hope that like the impact, I hope that I make music that people can really connect with, especially the harder things in life. They can connect with it, and if my music can be therapeutic for them, that would bring me so much joy to know that that someone is getting through something, and my music could maybe be a little bit of a connection or a little bit of a mirror, like, hey, I hear you and I see you and I'm going through the same thing. And like, and that would bring me so much joy to know that it's maybe been therapeutic for someone or a connection for someone. I think also, you know with like the artists I named earlier, like I for me, they have really lifted my ceiling of what I think is possible with music, um, and creativity, and it has wanted me to do, like, it has inspired me to do the same thing. And I think that's the other thing, that I just hope that I like the impact, if I could impact people, I hope that I inspire people to be creative and to dream and to, like, I hate when, you probably have had people come to you and say this too, like, when people hear you sing or play piano or hear your song, or even this hair, people come up to you and they're like, "Oh, I love that, and I wish I could do that, but that's just not me." And I'm like, and I always respond with, "Of course you could do that." Like, of course, like if you want to, like, people are like, "Oh, I wish I could play piano, but that's just not, I don't know how to play me. I don't know music." It's like, you could, like, music, like you could learn music, like learning how to drive, like, like you could learn how to play piano, like learning how to drive a car. Like you could, like anything is learnable. If you want to learn how to write music, you can learn how to write music. You don't have to be born with whatever, whatever. Like you can learn it. And so I hope that my music is like creative and like dynamic, and I hope that it I don't know it I hope that it hopefully inspires other people to just be bold and off the wall and to be weird and do, and it's not even in music, it's whatever it is for them. But just I hope that I would love that if I could leave that impact, that would make me so happy. If just that people can really, you can do whatever you want to do, and I hope that I can help encourage that message.
Yeah, I mean, it is ultimately like what you put your energy into is what will advance the most. And it's very hard for anything that you put a solid amount of time and energy into to just stay stagnant and remain where it's at.
Yes.
Like it's just like it's
Yes.
harder for things to like it's almost like it's harder to fail than it is to succeed if you're like putting the right amount of energy and time into something like that.
100%. I love that. I could not agree more.
I'm potentially trying something new here and doing this, and this will be the first time that I try and do this. I'm instating something new. If all goes well, hopefully this will continue on. I want you to give me a question to ask for next week's episode.
Ooh, that is so cool. I love that. That's such a good idea. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well, now the pressure's on.
I know. It's like, oh, okay. Here we go. Okay, let me think about this.
I know it's hard because I have trouble writing these questions all the time.
I know, and your questions are so thoughtful, and I'm
Thank
trying to
you.
think of something equally thoughtful. And I guess, okay, I have like maybe this one question that came to mind is something along the lines of what is a like almost like, you know, people say bucket list or something like something you want to do in your life. But like so almost like what is a dream of yours to do in the future that you have not done yet? But more specifically, like you as an artist, not like oh, I want to visit Ireland. It's like, you know, like, or unless you want to visit Ireland because you want to dive into that music and da 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 da. But more, it's more just like, or like skydiving or something. Like it's more of like what's a bucket list item for you that you have not checked off your box yet, and that you've not checked off your list yet. That's something that is like artistically related. That is like you as an artist. I would love to know that from your next person.
Okay.
That's a really cool question.
That is, yeah, that's a good one to start the trend with, for sure. Okay. Awesome.
Cool thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. Then in that case, that brings us to the final question, which is ultimately the concept behind the podcast, which is why music?
Yeah, that's a good good way to end a podcast called Why Music. You know, sometimes I think probably we all feel this pressure sometimes of coming up with an answer that's like that's unique, never heard before, you know. Like even that first question you asked me, I feel sometimes like oh, it's so like, oh, I started piano lessons and like I was in choir, and like it's just such a like it's kind of a more basic predictable answer, and it's like but it's by truth, it's a true answer, and I try to always answer honestly and not try to find something like. The reason I say this is the honest truth is there's just nothing else I love more doing. And I wish I had a more, you know, part of me wishes I had a more unique, like groundbreaking answer, but it's just the truth. Like I love making music. It brings me so much joy, and I love being able to, you know, bring other people entertainment or joy. That also just it makes me even happier, and I just love it. And there's really nothing else that there's nothing else that would make me happier in my career than to make music. And so that's why.
You're right. It's not groundbreaking. I get that.
Yeah.
That's the common answer that we get a lot, but it's like, that's kind of along the lines of what it should be, you know, because it's like, if you're not doing this for the purpose of like, this is what you want to do with every fire of your being, this is the thing that lights the fire in you, then what are you here for? Because it's not like this is some glamorous thing most of the time, because it's, you know, especially in the world of small and independent, it's like, okay, like I'm pulling this budget out of my pocket from whatever else to kind of fuel what currently might stand as a passion project, and you just kind of want to see it go further. So it really, like, yeah, it's the answer that is very common, but it's like, in a way, in a world where there isn't really a right answer, it's the right answer. Because it shouldn't be any other way.
Yes. That's it. There's just nothing I love more doing. It's so wonderful.
I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.